The main aim of this presentation is to help you, to guide you to read head and neck, and to introduce the basic concepts of head and neck teaching so that you won't appear lost when new terms are taught. These are the contents of the presentation. We'll start with the bones of head and neck. The bones that form the skull are totally 22 plus the 6 ossicles inside the ear. So each ear will have 3 ossicles, malleus, incus and stapes. The bones that form the skull can be broadly divided into two groups, neurocranium and splanchno-cranium. The bones that form the cranial cavity are called the neurocranium. Totally 8 bones contribute to it. Of the 8, the paired bones are parietal and temporal. The unpaired bones are frontal, occipital, sphenoid and ethmoid. The bones that form the vault of the skull, that is the top part of the skull, they ossify in membrane, and the bones that form the base of the skull, they ossify from cartilage. The bones that form the facial skeleton, they are called the splanchno-cranium, totally made up of 14 bones. Of the 14, the unpaired bones are omer and mandible, and the paired bones are nasal bones, lacrimal bones, inferior nasal concha, maxilla, zygoma and palatine bones. So when we learn about the bones of skull, we can see that when we learn a particular bone, it's not confined to a particular region, but it will be contributing to the adjacent area also. So the better way to learn the bones of the skull is from different view of the skull, and they are given different terms. For example, when we view the skull from the anterior aspect, that is called normofrontalis, from posterior aspect normo-occipitalis, from side way we call it as normolaterales, from superior aspect that is normoverticalis, from inferior aspect that is normobasalis. The base of the skull, the interior aspect is shown, and then orbital view is nothing but a view of the bones forming the orbit. So this is normoverticalis, a superior view of the skull. In this, anteriorly we see the frontal bone. Behind the frontal bone, shown in light blue color, that's the parietal bone. The right and the left parietal bone, they are separated by sagittal suture. The frontal bone is separated from both the parietal bone by coronal suture. Behind the parietal bone, what is shown in pink color, that is the occipital bone. It is separated from the parietal bone by means of the lambdoid suture. This is normolaterales. In this we see the frontal bone. Behind the frontal bone, the parietal bone. Behind the parietal bone, the occipital bone. Below the parietal bone, what we see in yellow color, that's the temporal bone. In front of the temporal bone, below the parietal and the frontal bone, the dark brown that we see that's the greater wing of sphenoid. So this is the base of the skull. We are viewing it from its inner aspect. The dark brown bone labeled as sphenoid, that is an unpaired bone. It has a body. The spread out part is called the greater wing, and then above that we have the lesser wing. This bone resembles a butterfly shape. It's an unpaired bone of the neurocranium, and the one shown in front of it, anterior to it, that light grey color, that's the ethmoid bone. This is the ethmoid bone shown here. This ethmoid bone contributes to the roof of the nasal cavity, to the nasal septum, to the lateral wall of the nose, as well as the medial wall of the orbit. So to summarize the bones of the neurocranium, the paired ones are parietal and temporal. The unpaired ones are the frontal, occipital, sphenoid and ethmoid. Totally 8 bones form the neurocranium. Coming to the facial skeleton or the splanchno-cranium, we know they are made up of 14 bones. To start with, here in this picture, the pink one, that's the, you can see the orbit, and then the dark black color, that's the nasal cavity. Okay. Now shown in green color, those are the nasal bones, and in the medial wall of the orbit, the lacrimal bones are labeled. Below the nasal cavity, bone forming the upper jaw, that's the maxilla, and the one shown in white, the cheekbone, that's the zygoma. And below, the blue one shaded, that's the mandible. Mandible is the only movable bone of the skull. In this picture, in the lateral wall of the nose, there are shelf-like projections called concha. Actually, there are three: the superior concha, middle concha, and inferior concha. The superior and middle concha are part of the ethmoid bone, whereas the inferior nasal concha is the largest and it is an independent bone. They are paired. And the one shown in pink color forming the nasal septum, that is the omer. Omer is again a unpaired bone. Okay, so to summarize the facials, after that, so this is the inferior aspect of the skull. Here the hard palate, posterior part of the hard palate, we can see the palatine bones. To summarize the facial skeleton, totally 14 bones. Unpaired ones are the omer and mandible. Paired ones are the nasal, the lacrimal, the maxilla, the zygoma, inferior nasal concha, and palatine bones. Now coming to the bones of neck, that is the cervical vertebra, they are totally 7 in number. They are separated by the intervertebral disc. Of the seven cervical vertebra, the first, second, and the seventh are atypical. Now we'll talk about the typical cervical vertebra and its features. So any vertebra, it will have a body. Behind the body, the vertebral foramen, and the vertebral foramen is bounded posteriorly by the lamina, that is thin and flat. The body is connected to the lamina by means of a short pedicle. At the pediculo-lamina junction, we have the superior articular process, which bears a facet, and then we have the inferior articular process with a facet. We also have the transverse process, and then where the two lamina meet, we have the spinous process. So these are the parts of any vertebra. In a typical cervical vertebra, the body is transversely oval. The vertebral foramen is large and triangular because it has to accommodate the cervical enlargement of the spinal cord. It's going to give rise to the cervical plexus. The spine is short, bifid, and downturned. A very characteristic feature of cervical vertebra is in the transverse process, it has an opening of foramen called the foramen transversarium. The foramen transversarium of all the typical cervical vertebra are going to transmit the second part of vertebral artery. And this foramen transversarium is bounded by anteriorly by the anterior root, which ends in an anterior tubercle, posteriorly by the posterior root, which ends in a posterior tubercle. The anterior and the posterior tubercle are joined by a costotransverse pair. The facet on the superior articular process is facing upward and backward. The facet on the inferior articular process is facing forward and downward. The first cervical vertebra is an atypical vertebra. It's called the atlas because it's going to support the weight of the skull. Atlas has no body, no spine. Instead, it has a short anterior arch, a long posterior arch. The arch, anterior and the posterior arch, they are connected by the lateral mass, which has a superior and inferior articular facet. And then it has a short transverse process. The anterior arch on the inner aspect, it bears a facet to articulate with the odontoid process of atlas. And in the lateral mass, the superior articular process is large, deeply concave and kidney shaped. It's going to articulate with the condyles of the occipital bone to form the atlanto-occipital joint. The foramen transversarium in the transverse process presents a costotransverse bar, posterior tubercle and posterior root. There is no anterior root and anterior tubercle. The second cervical vertebra or the axis, the lower part of it is typical, whereas in the upper part, it presents an upward projection called the odontoid process or dens, which is going to articulate with the atlas to form the median atlantoaxial joint, which is a pivot joint. And the spine of axis is massive, short, bifid. It's massive because it's going to give attachment to 5 pairs of muscles. And the spinous process of all the cervical vertebra will give attachment to ligamentum nuchae. The 7th cervical vertebra has a long spinous process and it's aptly called vertebra prominens. So while talking about the bones of head and neck, so we finished skull and then moved on to cervical vertebra. The most important one that we should remember is the hyoid bone in the list. So this hyoid bone is present in the neck, in the anterior aspect of the neck, in the midline of the neck, midway between the chin and thyroid cartilage, opposite the C3 vertebra. Okay. This hyoid bone is deeply situated, covered, surrounded by muscles. And interestingly, it doesn't articulate with any adjacent bone to form joints, but it is attached to the bones by ligaments and muscles. The parts of the hyoid vertebra, you see, it has a central part of the body, and from the sides of the body you can see a long projection that's called the greater horn, and between the greater horn and the body, that angle, it has a small conical projection called the lesser horn. The hyoid bone gives attachment to the muscles of floor of mouth, muscles of tongue, muscles of pharynx and larynx, and by this it helps in breathing, swallowing and speech. Because it's deeply situated, it's not that easily fractured, but in any suspicious death, if the hyoid bone is fractured, it can be due to strangulation. Now moving on to the joints of head and neck, like elsewhere in the body you can find different types of joints here, sutures, synchondroses and synovial joint. But the main purpose of the bones of head is to protect the brain, meninges and the spinal cord. Okay, so most of it is not going to move. So the joints of the head and neck are mainly sutures and synchondroses and very rarely synovial joint. So as we know, the joint between the frontal and the parietal bone is coronal suture. Between the two parietal bones, it was the sagittal suture. Between the parietal and the occipital bone, that's the lambdoid suture. Between the parietal and the temporal bone, we have the squamous suture. So here we see the normobasalis part, the basal base of the skull. From the inner aspect we see that yellow bone is the sphenoid, the light brown, that's the occiput bone. The part where the foramen magnum is actually present in the occiput bone. The junction between the sphenoid and the occiput bone is an example for primary cartilaginous joint or synchondrosis. We saw that the mandible is the only movable bone of the skull. It forms the lower jaw. This mandible articulates with the temporal bone to form the temporomandibular joint, which is the synovial joint of head and neck. And between the cervical vertebra, between the atlas and occiput, the atlanto-occipital joint is an ellipsoid synovial joint. Between the atlas and axis, there are 3 joints, one in the midline and 2 on the lateral. The median atlantoaxial joint is a pivot joint. The lateral atlantoaxial joint is a synovial joint, plain synovial joint. And the joint between the other cervical vertebra, the intervertebral joint, is an example for symphysis or secondary cartilaginous joint.